Ecuador cuts gasoline expenditures in brand new concession to protesters. Quito. Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso stated on Sunday he might cut expenses for fuel and diesel via 10 cents a gallon, the state-of-the-art concession to try and end nearly 2 weeks of anti-government protests wherein at the least 6 humans have died. The sometimes violent demonstrations by means of largely indigenous protesters worrying lower fuel and meals fees, among other things, began on June 13 and have slashed Ecuador's oil production. Lasso, whose opposed courting with the countrywide assembly has worsened in the course of the protests, had already withdrawn safety features and announced subsidized fertilizers and debt forgiveness, and his authorities met this weekend with indigenous organizations. The chief of the CONAIE Indigenous Corporation, Leonidas Iza, had flagged fuel expenditures and different problems as nevertheless terrific in advance on Sunday, promising to maintain up the demonstrations until they had been settled. Everyone considers that fuel costs have ended up the cornerstone of retaining the war, and though we as a central authority are very clear that this element isn't always the beginning of Ecuadorians' troubles, we should consider the not unusual good and citizens' peace, Lasso stated. I even have determined to reduce the fee of gas extra and ecopious fuel by 10 cents according to gallon and additionally diesel with the aid of 10 cents consistent with gallon, Lasso said. Lasso iced over fees for gas extra at $2.55 a gallon and diesel at $1.90 a gallon in October ultimate 12 months, setting off an initial collection of protests. Gasoline extra will now fee $2.45 per gallon, at the same time as diesel will cost $1.80, each still higher than CONAIE had asked. Ecuador's oil manufacturing has fallen through extra than half because of avenue blockades and vandalism connected to the protests, the power ministry said earlier. Oil production is at a crucial degree. Today the figures display a discount of greater than 50%, the ministry stated in a declaration. In 14 days of demonstrations, the Ecuadorian kingdom has stopped receiving around $120 million. Vandalism, the takeover of oil wells and avenue closures have avoided shipping of important supplies, the ministry stated. Before the protests, oil manufacturing became approximately 520,000 barrels per day. The public oil area, private producers of flowers and dairy merchandise, tourism and different organizations have misplaced about $500 million, the Ministry of Manufacturing said. Residents of Quito have complained of product shortages, and Lasso mentioned earlier on Sunday hospitals inside the metropolis of Cuenca were struggling an oxygen shortage. CONAIE has tallied 5 protester deaths, whilst the authorities says 4 civilians have died at some point of protests and 2 died in ambulances behind schedule by blockades. Lawmakers endured debate on Sunday on an attempt to do away with Lasso from workplace, even though it seems opposition businesses do not have the important guide to do this.